Doug Jones and Sonequa MartinGreen in Star Trek Discovery. Jan ThijsCBS, who owns Star Trek? It's a tricky question. Star Trek has been around as a franchise for half a century. Before this year, it had included 5 TV series, 6 if you count the animated one, sequels, prequels and crossovers, and several series of movies. So not only does Star Trek have many lives, it has many fan bases. There are the veterans who watched the original on NBC in 1966. There are youngsters who've binged a series, or two, or everything, on streaming TV. There are partisans of each of the series' protagonists, Kirkites, Picardians and so forth, and there are utter newbies. All of which means that, before beginning my review of the newest installment, Star Trek Discovery, I had to first consider for whom am I writing this. The pat answer would be everybody, but that would willfully ignore what media and fan culture are today. We live in the golden age of the superfan. Networks, studios and artists actively cultivate enthusiasts of pop culture brands and franchises. They're served by conventions, online communities, podcasts, whole ecosystems of media dedicated to digging into the minutiae of their favorites. This is great, but it's not really my gig. As the chief television critic for a general interest newspaper, as I've been for just over 2 years, my job is to be a grazer, a sampler, a dabbler. I don't believe that there's a hierarchy of fandom, that fans who have logged more eyeball hours supporting a franchise are more authentic than other fans, and thus have greater ownership of the story. So I write for the center of the Star Trek bell curve, the fan who may have seen a lot of the previous programs, or a little, or none at all, but who's interested in Discovery. This, by the way, is probably fine for the Trek superfan, who in today's vast media cosmos can find plenty of more targeted reviews from the standpoint of completists. Of course, Star Trek isn't just any story. It's part of our national mythology, a continuing megastory whose characters come to represent our abstract ideals. It would be malpractice for a TV critic not to know anything about Star Trek. I'd watched each of the series, more Deep Space Nine or less, Enterprise. This kind of question, how much does the source material matter, comes up more often as pop culture has become dominated by adaptations, Game of Thrones, revivals, The X-Files, reboots, Dynasty, sequels, Fuller House, prequels, Young Sheldon and remakes of adaptations. The Tick. It's as if we were trapped in a time loop reliving the past, not unlike the Star Trek The Next Generation crew in the episode Cause and Effect. My philosophy is that any work needs to stand on its own. If I need to have read the source book to really get a TV series, then it's not a good series. It's not an iron rule, of course. Good luck understanding Twin Peaks: The Return if you didn't see the original. Then again, good luck even if you did see the original. Likewise, part of what I need to ask about a show like Discovery is if it weren't associated with this brand, would I want to watch any more of it? To an extent, my job is to know something about Star Trek, but simultaneously make myself forget it. I address some of these meta questions in my review of Discovery, which I wrote after watching 6 episodes. Some franchise fans have criticized the new series for breaking with the optimistic tone of past series. I don't have that problem, although I had other issues. Franchises stay vital by remaking themselves for their times, not by pledging allegiance to the past. Just as Batman could be a camp icon in the 1960s and a brooding anti-hero in the 21st century, so can Trek complicate itself for the era of complex TV. Of course, it's not just critics who have to think about this. The creators of a work like Star Trek Discovery have to keep multiple audiences in mind. After all, CBS was probably counting on the passionate Trek fan base to drive subscriptions to its all-access streaming service. But a franchise also needs new fans to grow. If you become too beholden to callbacks and timelines, you risk becoming less a storyteller and more of a custodian. It's a big universe, and Star Trek belongs to all of it. Follow Times Insider on Twitter. A version of this article appears in print on October 20, 2017, on page A2 of the New York edition with the headline "How a TV Critic Manages a Franchise."